Hello, everybody. Welcome to the internet. Hello out there in internet land. I see a shadow blazer. Okay. Sorry, guys. We were running a little late. I actually just barely got home because my daughters were hanging out with their grandparents. And that's why I'm running late. And I'm sticking to it. Nobody will tell
Hear
me
me?
otherwise. Now I can. You're coming in really loud.
Okay, good.
I mean, not good that you blew out my ears, but...
Yeah.
Let me see if I can turn you down, too. Okay, talk again. Okay, that sounds better. Okay, there we go. I think we fixed it. If we haven't, then it's not my fault, and I'm going to blame you both from here on. That's okay. I usually do that anyway. Let's see. Let me get the chat out really quick. That's okay. I usually do that anyway. There we go. Pop out the chat. Okay. How is everybody doing this fine evening? I say fine because I'm trying to detract from the fact that I am tired. And I have a smoothie again. Can you tell my throat still has issues? Nah. Okay. I think we are good. We will just let people gather here. Jeez. Okay, so I'm trying to get used to this whole doing the agenda via phone because it's actually easier, so I don't have to worry about irritating kids or whatever. And it comes out in the proper format on the phone, but then I bring it up here and it's just like, whoa! What happened?
Yeah, that's a risk with different formatting thingies.
Well, I think it's actually narrowed down to Office Online because that's how I'm doing it. Because they're like screwing up the formatting for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of thing was deliberate, to be honest. They're probably bitter that nobody really caught on to the Windows Phone.
Microsoft hold a grudge? Romney. They never do that. And now everybody who watches, your Xbox will instantly red ring.
Yeah. Well, I don't have an Xbox, so I don't have to worry.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And my Xbox isn't even plugged in, so they can't even send the signal to mine. So sucks to be them. Although in Microsoft's defense, Alex, I think we have to honestly call this. I think Xbox at this point is the king of backwards compatibility. I think we have to hand the crown over to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, PlayStation has disappointed us for the last time. They cannot make... And I get why they can't make it work. But at the same time, it's like they're not even thinking about bringing the assets in the PS3 store somehow onto the PS5. And so it's like, well... I mean, what do you do at that point? Now you have 4 Xbox consoles that can link together. You can play classic Xbox, you can play 360, you can play Xbox One, and then you can play Series X. So I think it's safe that we need to give the crown to Microsoft for backwards compatibility. They did it.
Absolutely.
I'm sad to do that because, I mean, in my opinion, backwards compatibility wouldn't have even been a considerable feature until Sony did it with the PS2. I mean, there are earlier arguments that could be made, but to me, the PS2 was the one that actually kind of coined the term backwards compatibility as far as gaming. And it's like, oh, and then they screwed it up. Damn you, cell processor, for being so blast. I guess for being so cell. Insert cell joke here.
Which one? There's like just several different directions it could be taken to.
I was going in the Dragon Ball direction.
Even then.
So, perfect cell. Sony wanted to handle things perfectly, but it didn't turn out that way.
Well, kind of like how the Cell Saga played out.
Yeah, pretty much. Which was originally the Android Saga, and then the editor came in. Curse you, editor, said Toriyama, and then he fixed it.
Well, I mean, the editor, that's kind of their job, is that they basically are. I mean, there's the famous story of how one of the editors, when Toriyama was starting out, how with one of the manga he had drawn like a full chapter, and then literally this editor took the chapter and threw it straight into the shredder and told him to redo it.
Yeah. I mean, there are actual inclinations of bad editors. Dan Didio, is that his name? Dan Didio, probably a good example.
Yeah, of course, to keep in mind, editors with Japanese manga magazines aren't quite the same as the editors we have for the comic magazines. Here.
Well, and it's not the thing I was getting to here is, I mean, Toriyama may not have liked it when he said that, but the dude had a point. Like, if he hadn't listened to his editor, we would have ended at Android 19 and 20, and they were kind of derpy looking.
Yeah, of course. Then again, if he had listened to his editor, it would have ended at the Frieza saga.
Oh, really? They wanted it. I didn't know that. They wanted it to end at Frieza?
Yeah, like one of the it was an interesting thing because between the Frieza saga and then starting the Android saga, they had a changeover of editors, and the editor who was the editor at the time, who pretty much was there from the beginning up until the end of the Frieza saga, when looking back, and this was an interview that came out at the start of the release of Super, he basically explained, yeah, if I was still in the editorial position, I would have had him ended at the Frieza saga, which makes sense thematically. It kind of was like, well,
it kind of does. Like he became the legendary Super Saiyan. He beat the nastiest person in all of at that point in all of the galaxy.
Yeah,
like who could stand up to him at that point?
Yeah, like where can you go? And well, granted, the Android saga found a way to keep it going.
Yeah.
And the Boost saga happened, which even by Toriyama's own admission, admitted that he got burnt out.
Yeah, and I agree with him on that because here's the thing: how can you top Frieza? And he actually had a decent answer for this. Eventually, in Cell, in saying like, "Oh, you have to fight yourself," essentially, or you have to fight yourself and your friends, essentially. Okay,
yeah.
But then. And in essence, it actually was perfect for Gohan because then you could actually say, in a weird way, Gohan surpassed Goku because he beat Cell. And so at that point, you could have that argument, but then you bring in Boo, and everybody was just like, well, okay, so what's the theme here? And the theme was, we just want to see the Earth die.
Well,
and we want to have a child do it.
Well, it was more of a case where Toriyama kept kind of waffling, because although the reason that Gohan ended up beating Cell was because in the character popularity polls, Gohan was actually proving to be more popular than Goku. So they thought, okay, I'm going to hand the protagonist reins over to Gohan since he's the more popular character. And when you look at the Great Saiyaman parts of the saga, you can kind of see what he's trying to do. He's like, okay, he's going to go kind of the superhero route of him trying to balance between being savior of the Earth, the superhero in Satan City, as well as trying to be a good student. But then Toriyama, by his own admission, just kind of got burnt out. He's just like, hey, this isn't really fun anymore. I'm going to bring Goku back to just wrap this all up so that way I can just walk away from this and be done. And then he handed off the stuff with GT to the people at producing the anime and thought, okay, well, here's some early stuff for GT.
Although he did approve Super Saiyan 4. Like, he came back and he approved Super Saiyan 4.
Yeah, he approved Super Saiyan 4, and he gave them an initial outline. The Black Star Dragon Ball stuff, that was Toriyama.
Yeah.
But even a lot of the producers of GT admitted, it's like, hey, we got about 12 episodes in, and we realized that this is not working, and we need to retool. And so they did. And honestly, we're kind of seeing the same sort of thing with Super, where Toriyama just gives basic outlines to the anime people and to Toyotaro, and that's how you end up with the radically different interpretations of events between the manga and the anime.
Has Super resumed?
Not as an anime, but the manga has been going.
I was gonna say the manga's going, but I don't think they've tried to adapt this arc that they're doing, which confuses the hell out of me. Because first it was space hopping, like Goku and Vegeta are space beat cops, and then
they join the Galactic Patrol. Then I mean, Moro as a villain is at least interesting. The idea of him pulling from all energy around him, including the people he's fighting. I'm just like, okay, that's the kind of villain we needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far there's been no movement on the anime front because things have been kind of in flux. Because from what I've heard, the popularity of Super was also in question.
Yeah.
And so people are speculating that they're probably...
I don't even... Correct me if I'm wrong, even the Japanese audience didn't really attach to it.
Yeah, and I think a large part of it is that by this point, Dragon Ball in general has been overtaken by shows like My Hero Academia, One Piece, and a lot of these other shonen series. And honestly, that's probably what it was, is that the people who are into Dragon Ball are all grown up, and while Dragon Ball Kai brought a new generation of fans into it, it just wasn't enough to get people on board.
And on top of that, they didn't start off strong, in my opinion. Recapping 2 movies was not the way to start off. You should have just started off into Universe 6. And just gone from there. In fact, I know a lot of hardcore Dragon Ball fans who didn't even watch those 2 arcs. They just waited until something new came up.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm just wondering what's going to happen, because Oda has basically confirmed that within the next 5 years he's going to be ending One Piece, and that's going to create kind of a pop culture power vacuum.
Yeah. And honestly, like, what I'm actually now kind of worried about, like when you and I initially talked about it, we were kind of psyched for it because it would open up a whole lot more story direction. But now when I look back at the Battle of the Gods and Resurrection F arcs in Super, I don't know if I necessarily want them to do a Broly arc. Because they elongated things, but not in the right ways, and they kind of hurt the overall story doing so. But I don't know. Maybe they could do better with Broly. I don't know.
I doubt they're gonna repeat themselves, because I think they even understood, hey, this was kind of a criticism.
Yeah.
Now that the manga has gotten pretty far ahead,
it might be a cool idea to see Broly in that first episode, like have a training session between Goku and Broly, but like don't focus on like telling a Broly arc. Just go into what's next.
Yeah, I mean, unless they decide to do not so much a retelling of the arc, but maybe a side series. That's one thing a lot of people are hoping they'll do, is maybe some sort of side series focusing on Broly, Chilai, and Lenmo, thinking, okay, a side series that just runs concurrently with Super, where, okay, while we've got the events with Goku and the gang, here's what these 3 are up to at the same time.
I like that. I actually like that.
Yeah, but again, there's only one mangaka really working on stuff, and that's Toyotaro, and now Toyotaro, given that he's no longer having to compete with the anime, he's kind of coming to his own with Super, but I think it's just with the way Toei's looking at it, they're probably like, well, One Piece is doing more popular than, well, Dragon Ball, so we're going to just focus on One Piece and what other Shueisha series we can license, because Toei already beat us to My Hero Academia.
Well, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think somebody was telling me Bleach is now Shueisha?
Oh, Bleach was a Shueisha series from the get-go.
Yeah, and so they have to worry about redoing that, because we have that 4th arc coming.
Yeah, and especially one thing I'm sure Toei is worried about is them losing, like Toei and Shueisha, was them losing Shaman King to Kodansha, and King, and I believe the anime company is King Amusement Creative is the anime company, because they've been the ones uploading a lot of the promotional stuff.
So CAC.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Not really. That's probably why they just have the full name instead, or they probably just shorten it to just King.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so, with Shaman King on the horizon coming in 2021, I'm sure Toei and Shueisha are thinking, okay, we need to ramp things up, because Demon Slayer has ended, Food Wars has ended, One Piece is going to be ending in 5 years, meaning that they're going to probably struggle to come up with newer titles to try to fill in those gaps, which Black Clover hasn't quite hit it. My Hero Academia, Shueisha is probably happy with, but Toei is probably nervous, because Toho is doing My Hero Academia. and that one is, dominating. I'm pretty sure My Hero Academia, once One Piece ends, My Hero Academia will become kind of the big shonen.
That probably will happen. Because I would also say Boruto is not filling in those shoes.
Yeah, and Kishimoto tried with Hachimaru, but Hachimaru, I think the big problem is that Hachimaru was a bit too cerebral, too sci-fi than what people were looking for.
Yeah.
I've read the first 5 chapters, and it's an interesting concept, but it felt too similar to Naruto. It was like, oh, it's space Naruto, but with samurai.
Yeah.
Again, like with some retooling, it could have worked, but I think a lot of it was, oh, it's created.
What I've basically been told with this idea is Kishimoto kind of needed a year or two more to think about it, and then he probably could have made it work.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, like, trying to combine samurai with sci-fi. There's only been a few series that have pulled it off, but granted, that's usually because they've banked on proven concepts, like Samurai 7 being based off of what is arguably the greatest of Akira Kurosawa's films.
Yeah.
Made with the approval of Kurosawa's estate.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. It's difficult to merge samurai into a sci-fi aspect. I can't even, like, maybe you could argue Tenchi is another good incorporation, but I don't know if I would argue that.
I would, but that's more because with Tenchi, a lot of the inspiration is a lot more deeply rooted in Japanese mythology, more so than Hachimaru. Hachimaru tried to tie into it, but with Tenchi, the argument could be made because a lot of the characters and a lot of the events are rooted very much so in Japanese mythology.
Yes.
So
my only beef with that is that when I bring that up with any anime fan, the first thing they think about, oh, a harem anime? I was like, it's not a harem, but I get why you think that.
Yeah, and even the producers kind of made it clear, like, hey, that wasn't our design, it's just kind of what it turned into because we just decided to flesh out the side characters. Because literally the original concept, it was just going to focus solely on Tenchi and Ryoko.
Yeah, and I like that idea.
And then pretty much what it was like, okay, well, let's make these side characters that are going to be popular. Let's actually make them into interesting characters that are unique instead of having them just be archetypes. And then before they knew it, they realized, oh, hey, these characters that we spent time, actually developing became popular. I guess.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't have had a problem if Ayeka, and I promise, guys, we will get to the podcast in a second, but I think you could have brought Ayeka into that, and it still would have been cool to have Ryoko and her bouncing back and forth. Maybe the little sister, maybe you could bring her in, but once you went past that point, that's when there became a little too many characters, and it would be very hard to do because the way I understand it, it was supposed to be kind of a space adventure kind of deal, and if you have too many characters to focus on, it becomes harder to be able to do that. And I think if you had, or even replace the little girl with a concept of a galaxy police detective in there, because they had a great idea with those two, but they're annoying as crap, and so you could do that. But yeah,
but Tenchi, I feel Tenchi Universe handled it better than the original OAVs of Ryooki. It was because Tenchi Universe was structured as a TV show and actually had that pacing to its advantage, where instead of trying to shoehorn Mihoshi and Kiyone into every episode, it's like, okay, here's the Mihoshi and Kiyone episode, here's the Sasami-focused episode, here's the Washu-focused episode.
And I haven't seen Tenchi Universe, so I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend it. Like, the OVAs, they're okay for what they were, but it's best to treat the original OVAs.
Hey, as long as they're better than the third season of Ryooki, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's best to look at the OVAs, that Ryooki pretty much comprises the whole OVA series. It's best to consider those as more proofs of concept for the Tenchi series, whereas Tenchi Universe is more what the series. Basically, it's kind of like, okay, if Ryooki was the proof of concept, Tenchi Universe is more in line with what the show was supposed to become. And then after that, you have No Need for Tenchi, which is a direct continuation. Well, no, not No Need for Tenchi. Tenchi in Tokyo was the one that followed. It's tricky because Tenchi Muyo translates to No Need for Tenchi, thus why DVD things are so confusing. So
yeah,
it goes Tenchi Universe, and then Tenchi in Tokyo follows up with that. Tenchi Universe is a more solidified concept, where there they had a better understanding of who the characters were supposed to be and what roles they played, and they kind of one key thing with Tenchi Universe is they took away the whole, oh, Tenchi's part Jiraiyan. In Tenchi Universe, he's just a normal human who just stumbles into this weirdness out of the blue. Then the spin-offs is where it gets weird, like the like GXP, and then some of the other weird spin-offs that are only tangentially related, just so they could like capitalize on the branding.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
okay.
Some of them, at least, they are upfront saying, hey, this is a spin-off, don't try to tie it to the main series because it's not connected, but then, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get our audio going, and then we can get things started for the podcast tonight.
All right, sound speed.
Alex, you good?
Yep.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, and let me get everything back up so we can monitor things. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Reviews and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek for Friday night, October 9th, 2020. With each week, we become closer and closer to 2021, and at that point, we can all cheer, because hopefully, the bad luck is gone. Everybody brought their lucky rabbit's foots, right? Phil? You didn't bring your lucky rabbit's foot. Come on, man. I am your host, Adam Mickelson. I hope everybody has had an awesome week. And with me tonight is my usual panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow content creators in general, fellow awesome guys in general. And if you guys aren't following their content, what the heck is wrong with you? Let's start things off with Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, Martial March, Monster Clash. Romney, how you doing?
Well, doing all right. It was just another fun, fabulous week of working at a TV news station in the year 2020.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure your bingo card's probably full by now. You've gone full blackout.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they don't even give me the prizes anymore. They're just like, okay, hey, just take the giant stuffed unicorn and just leave the bingo hall.
I was gonna say, we're out of them. Here's a $5 gift card to Applebee's. We didn't think anybody would win this, but here you go.
Yeah.
Something like that, like they've run out of gifts, and it's like, you have earned a stapler! Oh, okay. And also with me tonight is Alex the Shadow Blazer. Alex, how you doing this fine evening?
I just glad it's the weekend.
Oh, yes. TGI freaking F. Thank goodness it's Friday. I totally agree with you on that one. And before we get into the week's events in Geek, I have a little bit of, so listeners actually recommended that I bring this up to you guys to see whether or not I was in the right or in the wrong. Because I forgot to do that in a previous podcast. A couple of weeks ago, I actually received a message because I've made my opinion clear when it comes to next gen, and that the fact that I'm probably going to be waiting at least a year before I adopt either a PS5 or a Series X, just because I don't see the reason to get one. There isn't enough games to get me interested, and I already did the early adopt thing this gen, wasn't really happy with it. So at that point, I've been very vocal about it. I had a guy actually reach out to me and say, I was actually a really big fan of your streams for a year now, and I have decided I'm not going to watch you anymore because if you're not willing to early adopt to the current generation of consoles, you are being an unprofessional streamer. And so me and Andrea were trying to figure this out. I'm going to let you guys kind of try and figure this out because I was like, okay, well, whatever. And then, I actually even I said, I'm sorry, man. Like, it's a lot of money to dole out. I wish I could do more for you. And then I actually did get a reply from him basically saying, well, you were already on thin ice because you were running with computer parts that were years old. And what he's referencing is that I just barely bought a new graphics card, and as you guys know, because you guys have been around me, like, I don't buy stuff that's coming out this year. It's too expensive. I wait until a graphics card's like 3 years old, and then it's an ideal price for me. But no, I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars on a 3020 or what the new one was that NVIDIA unveiled. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
am I in the wrong? Am I being an unprofessional streamer? I don't think I'm being one. For crying out loud, I know some of the top streamers who still are like streaming in 720 because they can't like as much as they love their streams, they're too busy paying bills to upgrade their PCs.
Yeah, it sounds more like this guy wants someone else to take the risk and do the review stuff for him before he invests the purchase, which
That's
again,
kind of what
I
I'm
get
thinking too.
Yeah, which I get it, but at the same time, I mean, what? I just look at this, I'm just like, okay, what were you expecting from
Right.
the content? Because it's not like you constantly review new stuff as it comes out
No.
on a regular basis. You used to, but not really anymore. But it's a case where I look
No.
at this and I'm just like,
Yeah, I can't do the pace that IGN does or Kotaku does. Like, if I had more time in the day and I was being paid for it, maybe. But there's just no way. Not on the schedule that I have. But
yeah, especially if you, because again, the thing is with IGN and Kotaku, they are multi-million-dollar companies with a literal army of employees, and so they have the
not to mention like early access to these. Like, I think they've already gotten access to the Series X and the PS5 because I think I just barely saw like a teardown. Like they were taking it apart to show what's in it. So it's like, oh, okay, well, they've got access. So
Yeah, and so it's one of those cases where, yeah, not everyone can be IGN and Kotaku and have the millions and millions of dollars and resources to
no,
review things as they come out. And especially given with this new generation, it's still too early to tell anything, especially when you consider that the games are either being simultaneously released on current and next gen, or are simultaneously being released on next gen and PC.
yeah,
And that's why I'm in kind of that same camp, because although they announced Final Fantasy 16 and Resident Evil 8, which I'm excited for,
Mhm.
those games are also coming out to PC, and I'm thinking, okay, the amount of money it could take for me to get these new consoles, I could just upgrade the computer I have and probably do it for half the price to be able to play these games.
I mean, granted, like as far as release lineups go, Sony has got a good lineup for the PS5. There's already like 2 or 3 that I'd be interested in, but I kind of had the same problem you do. Final Fantasy 16 is interesting, but that's not coming out anytime soon. Horizon Forbidden West, that looks interesting. That's not coming out anytime soon. God of War Ragnarok, I think that's set for 2022. So it's just like, okay, well, here's the thing. Sackboy Adventure and Miles Morales will be there a year later, and I could just get them then. Or I can get them now and then have my PS5 or Series X collect dust for a year.
Yeah, or alternately, with Miles Morales, you can just get the PS4 version, because they're releasing it on PS4 in addition to PS5. Kind of rendering the whole thing pointless, unless people are really, really eager to get the deluxe edition with the Tom Hollandized model of Peter Parker, which...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad I'm sticking with the 2018 version. I like that model a
Yeah.
little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the reveals, and apparently it's not just Peter Parker. There's a whole bunch of characters they're basically recasting, for lack of a better term. And which
Yeah.
I look at this and I'm just like, why? Why?
No, you had the ideal cast.
Not to mention, it's rendered moot because the game, the PS5 is backwards compatible, meaning someone can just buy the game
Yes!
PS4 edition. And
I mean, it's great and all that you're offering this, but you know, I can just I can bring my saves over, and that way I can get all the DLC packs and just enjoy it then. Like that's probably what I'm gonna do with it. Alex, really quick, I'm gonna let you have a thought in on my predicament here before we start things up. Am I in the wrong? Like, should I be considering early adopting?
No. Just tell them you want me to early adopt, then you can hand over the $2,000 it would take to buy the 2 consoles.
$2,000. Give it to me. Oh yeah, that'd go over well.
You want me to review the console? Like,
Well, I mean,
Somebody tells me if I said that to him, the response would be, "Oh, now you're e-begging."
yeah, I'm e-begging because you're e-demanding.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally something I ran into with people. I mean, when I was trying this gaming show that I was going to start up that I ended up not doing because all of my gaming footage got corrupted, it was literally going to be called Romney's Retro Challenge. And I kid you not, when I announced the idea, everybody went, you gotta do Dark Souls, you gotta do Dark Souls, you gotta do Dark Souls. I'm just like, retro. What part of the title retro do you idiots not understand?
Yeah, that kind of happened also when I first announced the retro review idea, because I was already going for Sly Cooper, and it's still happening that way. But the first thing that came out was the first request that happened there was, I think, not the latest Souls game, but the latest controversial game. He's like, I'm not doing new things. Like, I'll do them occasionally, but I'm not going to be doing that, and I'm not going to be racing. I'm going to there's a reason I'm calling this the retro reviews, because I'm gonna go do retro and then I'll pepper in new stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
the Dark Souls fan base, I mean, they've mellowed out somewhat.
Yes,
but my god, they are insufferable.
Oh, wait until like there's like I'm pretty sure they're gonna come back with PS5 Demon Souls, and when Dark Souls 4 or whatever, like Bloodborne 2 gets announced, they'll come back. They're waiting, they're hibernating. That being said, let's go ahead and get into our top story for the evening. And speaking of controversy, so this has been happening most of the week, and actually has been kind of sad to see, especially with how gross it just kept getting. So, in case you guys do not know, Rooster Teeth's Ryan Haywood of Achievement Hunter and Adam Kovic of Funhouse. I might be getting those backwards. But Adam Kovic and Ryan Haywood have been dealing with a huge controversy involving explicit photos being leaked on the internet. Roll the dice, everybody. Do you think they're dick pics? Do you think?
Probably more than just dick pics.
Oh, Phil, you got a nat 20. They are exactly dick pics. They have to. Now, actually, they're worse. So yeah, we have not only dick pics of Ryan Haywood and Adam Kovic, but in Ryan Haywood's case, I believe it's Ryan Haywood's case, he actually was talking to a woman who he met during the con scene, and I get, like, this is the part that's unclear about it. He was talking to a girl that he was meeting at cons, and I guess when they were flirting and things like that, she was 17. Technically now she's 18. And they were actually talking about having an encounter at PAX. And so at that point, I can only imagine how happy his wife was to find out that he was going to go have a random sexual encounter with a girl he met at, like, random cons. So you had that. Oh, but it gets grosser. Because Adam Kovic, turns out, he was actually not only sharing pics of his dick, he was sharing pics of him and his wife having sex.
Yeah, not pics, videos.
Yeah, pics and videos. Pics and videos. I can't remember who he was sharing it to, but it was a seedy source.
According to the article from Game Revolution that we're referring to, it was basically a result of a catfishing scheme.
That's right. Yeah, okay, yeah, it was a catfishing scheme.
Yeah, someone was catfishing him using the name and photo of a pornographic actress in order to get Kovic to send those photos and videos.
Yep. So, yeah, this crap happened. So, in Ryan Haywood's case, now, as soon as this stuff got leaked, Ryan Haywood immediately kind of backed out, and from what I understand, he went to the higher-ups at Rooster Teeth and basically said, I'm gone. Like he basically quit right then and there, and he then put out a video apology, basically saying that he's stepping away to go basically fix the tatters of what's left of his family, and start to earn back their trust. Adam Kovic, however, I like how the headline of this article says that they, or according to Rooster Teeth's statement, they parted ways. But from what after doing some digging and hearing some scuttlebutt here and there, I'm kind of wondering if it was more like he got fired, and then Rooster Teeth decided to say they were just parting ways. Because it sounds to me like Kovic didn't want to go. So at that point, yeah, we have these issues happening, but let's get into the acts themselves really quick, because this is the part that irritates me the most. Haywood, like, random encounters with a girl in the con scene, like, that's bad. And I'm not saying that he's forgivable or anything like that. He shouldn't have done that on his wife, because I believe he's the one with kids. Adam Kovic doesn't have kids. So like he has a family to now go pick up the pieces that he wrecked. Kovic, however, dude violated the trust of his wife by basically filming them and sending it out to somebody, and safe to say the wife never knew. And now she's having to deal with all of this online embarrassment because, yeah, now she's involved and she didn't do a damn thing other than be in the lens of his camera. So I'm gonna let you guys kind of get into this. I'm legit pissed at both of them. I'm kind of where their former coworker from Red versus Blue basically said, where I am repulsed and very angry about it. Because this is just crap. But Lindsay Jones, that's the one who said it. Yeah, she was filled with overwhelming feelings of repulsion, betrayal, and rage. And so at that point, also we'll get into another aspect of this as kind of a result. But give me you guys' thoughts on the actions of Adam Kovic and Ryan Haywood.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Why can't people just keep it in their pants? Why is that such an abstract concept?
I would like to point everybody to the title of our podcast episode. Never unzip for the internet. Never do it.
Yeah.
Never do it.
And I acknowledge I'm speaking as someone who hasn't really followed Rooster Teeth in years because I kind of outgrew their content.
Yeah.
I never really got into Ruby.
I never got into the later stuff. Like, I watched Red versus Blue, but I never got into, like, Ruby or any of the stuff that came after.
Yeah, and it's a case of where I haven't really followed them in years. It's kind of crabby that this sort of stuff is happening, but at the same time, I don't really have any sympathy because both of these actions and the controversies that embroiled came from the result of these two men choosing to engage in these actions. And so, honestly, it's a case of where there's not much I can really say, except they kind of brought it on themselves.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you think with your dick and not your brain.
Well, not only that, but, I mean, this is one of several controversies that have plagued Rooster Teeth, not just this year, but kind of last year, too. Rooster Teeth has a lot to answer for. I mean, they had the animation crunch thing. They now had this. They had some other controversial stuff that was happening with their CEOs. Yeah, it's not good right now for Rooster Teeth. They're not looking very reputable right now.
I think a large part of it is that, and this is the same thing that happened to College Humor as well, is that Rooster Teeth didn't start out from the get-go as a production company. It started out as basically a hobbyist enterprise.
Yeah, a YouTube channel, and that was basically it.
Yeah, a YouTube, but before YouTube, since they initially uploaded to sites like Screw Attack and Game Trailers.
Yeah.
And so it was a case where it started out as a hobbyist thing, and it hasn't quite managed to adjust to being an actual legitimate production company. I mean, yeah, they produced actual content now and are considered a production company.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the good example of this, there's a video that Penn Jillette put up. It wasn't actually him, it was on a different channel, where it's kind of a case of, hey, this is the difference between Penn and Teller and, say, a group like the Beatles is that with Penn and Teller, they went into their partnership under the pretense of, this is a business partnership. We are working together as co-workers. We're not, we're not married to each other. And although they're still very good friends and still close to each other, they kind of made it clear from the get-go, hey, this is a business enterprise. Whereas the Beatles, on the other hand, Paul and John were really good friends, but then that friendship was torn apart by Yoko.
Yeah.
And this kind of same sort of thing. Something that started out as just kind of a hobbyist sort of project by a bunch of college students out of their basement has now kind of gotten too big to handle, because running a $1 million media company is a lot harder than people think it is.
Yeah.
And I think Rooster Teeth is starting to learn that the hard way.
The really hard way. Alex, your thoughts on this initial situation?
I kind of share Romney's sentiment with this. It's a couple of adults who should have known better. Now they're kind of having to reap the consequences of their actions. So, not a lot of sympathy from me either.
Yep. Here's basically the level of sympathy that they got from me, and I'm going to bounce this idea off you guys. For anybody, because here's the thing. Dick pics, vag pics, whatever you want to mention here, they never end well. All right? Not even like, other body parts there. It doesn't end well, because either it bites you in the butt now or 10 years down the road, and it comes out and it comes back to haunt you. So I'm almost considering this simple aspect is that if you get caught doing this stuff, it almost ought to be punishable by you getting your smartphone taken away from you, and then your cell phone provider comes out with one of those 80s brick phones, and you have to use that for a certain amount of time. And just so that they are an eyesore out in the middle of nowhere. You did a dick pic, didn't you? That's kind of why I would want to do that. It's just for the extra bit of humiliation, because there are so many examples of this not working out. You think people would have learned by now. But no, we still are digging up stories like this. We're still doing it.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, this sort of thing is nothing new. I mean, case in point, the Reynolds pamphlet way back in the early days of the United States.
Yeah, it's... Oh my gosh. And what makes it even worse is, I kind of mentioned this with Rooster Teeth. Here's the second part of this that kind of gets a little frustrating. They just recently made an announcement, I think on Reddit, where they had to delay all of the releases of their shows for this year. And they didn't really give the reason why, but it's highly speculated that Warner Media is so pissed at Rooster Teeth that they're basically investigating everybody at this point. And if they find anything on you, they're kicking you out so fast. Because they're done with this crap. I've even heard internally at Warner Media, they've been wondering why the hell they have two animation companies when they should have just merged them into one company a long time ago. And it's becoming a harder and harder argument not to just merge Rooster Teeth into Warner Brothers Animation. Because of these situations.
Animation even exists anymore.
It does because of films like the Lego Batman movie,
as
well as the straight-to-video DC films. That's basically been Warner Brother Animation's wheelhouse for the past decade. Is the straight-to-video stuff. The Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie kind of brought them back to the brink. Yeah,
exactly. And so at that point, they might as well like internally at Warner, because of all of the controversies that are happening, I wouldn't be surprised if Warner's just looking at that and going, why are we keeping you around as a separate entity? You should just go into WB Animation because we don't trust any of the people in charge.
I mean, I can kind of see why they wouldn't want to merge them just because of the confusion. Because although Warner Brothers Animation
I'm not saying that the Rooster Teeth stuff would move over. I think they would just kill Rooster Teeth.
Yeah, if anything, I can see them killing Rooster Teeth and maybe trying to license some of the IP out.
Yeah.
Kind of like what happened to, all of Filmation's entire library. But I can see why they haven't really folded things over because, again, Rooster Teeth is as much a brand as it is a company, where if you're putting out stuff like Ruby or Camp or a lot of these other shows they've done, or like Genlock, granted, Genlock was partially financed by Warner Animation and, lost them millions of dollars.
Yes.
Point being, it's kind of the same reason why Disney doesn't fold everything under Miramax, under the Disney umbrella. It's because they want to have that branding that is kind of still separate from the main moneymaker. So that way, in cases like this where Rooster Teeth does something like this, or something like this happens with Rooster Teeth, the main company isn't damaged by the bad PR.
Yeah, exactly. But just really quick back into the theory here. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that they delayed everything so that they can just do background checks on everybody?
I haven't even heard of anything, but I haven't followed news about Rooster Teeth that closely.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go so far with the whole background checks on everything. I can definitely, on every person, I can see Warner wanting to do some sort of an audit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, especially given how much money Warner has lost on projects like Genlock, and I think even the Ruby DC comic didn't really sell that well.
And that makes sense too. They literally could look at everything and say, okay, you're not making money, you're done. You're not making money. Okay, this one's making money, you're safe. But I still think that they're probably also auditing the higher ups too, because they do not want to have another story of another higher up in Rooster Teeth got caught in some scandal.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because when you look at Warner Media as a company, compared to their biggest rival Disney, they are not as eager to maintain a squeaky clean image. I mean,
No.
case in point, NetherRealm being a major acquisition, which granted, Warner Brother WB Games has been on thin ice as of late in the past couple of years because of financial troubles, with the upcoming Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League gonna basically being the make or break it titles.
Yeah.
But it's a case where Warner isn't as concerned as with preserving a family-friendly image. They've always been about being kind of the rebels, being like, oh, well, Disney's all squeaky clean families, we're kind of edgy. And so I can see this not so much being like, oh, we need to clean up our image. It's more Warner Bros. Thinking, okay, is this company going to give us another goddamn PR nightmare that we have to deal with? We already have to deal with this crap with Zack Snyder and with a lot of these other people.
Yeah.
With our DC stuff, is this going to be another headache that our lawyers are going to have?
That's why I'm thinking like this is probably at least some kind of a measure to clean house, because they're tired of all the controversy, they're tired of all the bad PR that their companies are getting, and so at that point they're just like, you know what, we're biting this off as close as we possibly can. We're taking care of all of the financial problems, and we're making this work again. Roughly.
Especially considering that Warner not only owns Rooster Teeth, they also own Elation, which owns Crunchyroll, which has also been starting to produce its own original content as well. And so it's very much one of those cases of where I don't know if they wanted to get rid of Rooster Teeth, I can see them thinking, okay, we're going to fold Rooster Teeth, we're going to hand off their IPs over to Elation since they seem to be handling their animation
That
better.
seems a little bit more likely.
Yeah, definitely more likely because the branding wouldn't be nearly as confused unless they decide to incorporate RWBY into the DC branding like they tried to do with the DC comic, which, again, from what I haven't really seen any hard figures, but I know that basically there are people who prefer the Viz manga that RWBY was putting out because it had Japanese artists behind it as opposed to the DC comic. Again, I don't have exact figures, but it's one of those cases where, yeah, with Warner Media doing any sort of audit or anything, it's really hard to tell because their branding is not nearly as strict as Disney's is.
No.
And so it's probably less a case of, okay, what is this going to damage the brand, and more of, okay, do we have to hire more lawyers to prepare for you clowns? Yeah,
but I think one thing that you and I can agree on in this case, Warner Brothers is not happy at this, not in the slightest. And so they are probably looking into whatever measures they can. Whatever those measures might be, I think they're taking it. The bottom line is like, and especially where I've heard like Warner Media has had some serious issues with a lot of their companies, it makes sense.
I don't think there's that much of a reason for Warner or Otter Media. I think it'd be more Otter rather than Warner, which I know Otter's a subsidiary of Warner, but I think it's going to go more to the direct parent instead of the big company. But these are just a couple random hosts. I don't want to say totally random, but they're just a couple of hosts of the Rooster Teeth branded variety. It's a fairly big company. If this was a very large scandal that involved more people within the company, I'd say there's more reason for some kind of giant corporate audit. But considering this is just a couple of guys, I don't see anything really coming out of this. I don't see any big shakeups. I see that,
well, I think in all honesty, Achievement Hunter and Funhouse are on hiatus. That's just the bottom line. So that's going to be a definite actual consequence of this, and probably indefinitely, because I don't think they're going to bring him back. Because I think both Haywood and Kovic were like the main hosts of those.
Yeah, I mean, I can see them maybe putting it to bed and then maybe trying a relaunch down the road after. Maybe not with the same people, but probably thinking.
Oh yeah, PRify, Achievement Hunter, PRify, Funhouse. Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe not even necessarily PRify. Just be like, okay, well, this controversy we're going to put these brands to bed for a while, and then maybe in a few years or so, we'll relaunch it with some new branding and some new people and see if there's still a market here. Especially given that achievements aren't as much of a draw in gaming as they once were back when Microsoft started doing achievements. And so it's one of those things where I think Alex makes a pretty good point, where given that these are just two smaller guys from a smaller company, it's probably not going to be as severe as people are making it out to be. It could just be a case where...
it's going to be serious for Haywood and Kovic, because they're going to have two wives to come home to, supposedly.
In the case of Rooster Teeth, the company, given that the talent has been dismissed, whether voluntarily or not, that's pretty much what any company would do. And so I can see Otter Media thinking like, okay, well, they did the bare minimum. They've washed their hands of this. We don't really need to do much else. And honestly, time will tell whether or not these controversies that have been coming in within the past few years will really damage the brand of Rooster Teeth, which it's kind of hard to say. I mean, granted, some shows like Ruby and Red vs. Blue are starting to succumb to seasonal rot, but it's a case where, I mean, again, Alex makes a pretty good point. These were just two smaller parts of a much larger whole that are probably a drop in the bucket as far as Otter Media and Time Warner are concerned.
Yeah, probably. So final thoughts, Alex, on this particular story?
No, I don't have too much more to say, but it's like I said, these are two hosts. They're two employees of an already larger company, and now that they've already been ousted, yeah, I think that's about it. I think this is a controversy that will be hot for like a few days and then die down like so many others before it.
Okay. The other thing I also want to bring up really quick, because I just got a question from a listener. Don't we find it a little odd that when it comes to the evidence regarding Adam Kovic, there was heaps and heaps of it to be able to unfurl, but he had no problem calling Vic Mignogna all the things that he did when they fired him, and they had no evidence with that. This is this person's opinion. Yeah. I've seen that, and I'm sorry, but the way that I look at it is, well, I mean, he already looked like a big old hypocrite anyway. Now he just looks like a bigger one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole, like, the whole Vic situation, that's a whole separate topic, since that was a issue.
It's not attached to it. That's the thing. I know what they're referring to. Adam Kovic was one of the first people to kick him out the door. But yeah, I mean, it does look bad considering, you know, that there wasn't much evidence in regards to Vic, and now there's tons of evidence in regards to Adam Kovic. But I'm not gonna like attach it to this story here. He just looks like an idiot through and through.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to really comment about that, especially considering the phrasing of this particular person's question kind of makes it clear where the asker's opinions lie. In my case, it's a case where, that's, again, nothing new in show business. I mean, it's very much a case where everyone disavows the ones who get caught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest principle that we keep learning in scandals like these is simply like the only time that these people are penitent is when they get caught. That's the bottom line. You aren't sad that you did this. You're sad that you got caught, and now you have to answer for it, kind of thing. And so at that point, Ryan looks like he's on the way to be able to do some level of accountability. I doubt Adam is there anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, by comparison, I mean, while soliciting a 17-year-old girl is scuzzy, there is case for benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying that this excuses his actions, but it could easily be a case where he maybe didn't know her age, thought she was 18, kind of like what happened with Pro Jared, where the person who accused Pro Jared of sending...
Yeah, at that point, it's simple cheating, is basically what it is. Kovic, however, like I'm guaranteeing you there's a divorce in Kovic's future.
Yeah, because there it's a case of, okay, you've got someone basically cheating with someone who they didn't really know how old they were. And again, he probably should have confirmed this. Again, this doesn't excuse it, but it's a case of if you're going to do it, you want to, make sure you're not, soliciting a minor, because even the slightest thing of soliciting a minor can still get you landed in jail in most states, even after they've already turned 18, depending on statute of limitations and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But with Kovic, there's a clear case of, okay, you literally recorded sexual acts between you and your wife without her permission or consent and without her knowledge. That's the infinitely scuzzier thing, because that is a clear violation of trust. And so that one is very much the, hey, this part is really hard to defend and is straight up reprehensible.
Yeah.
Especially considering the reason he was doing it.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and move on into the next story here, because we pretty much covered it all. Like, I'm not going to wish them the best or anything like that. They both kind of dug their own graves, and it looks like Ryan's going to deal with it. It looks like Adam's not going to deal with it, and that's the way it's going to be. But let's go ahead and get into the next story here, which I think Alex has a personal interest in, because I know that you've been complaining about this. So at that point, like when I saw you eventually bring up the story, I'm like, I wonder if it's related. But Nintendo has been getting complaints of what the term that is being called right now is Joy-Con drift. Basically, Alex, do you want to explain what that is since you've been dealing with it?
So basically, it's just that your controllers take on a bit of a mind of their own and have input actions even if you're not touching the joystick. So you could have your character stand perfectly still, but because the joysticks are registering movement, it's going to move you anyway, even though you're not touching them. There's some kind of internal faulty mechanic. I don't know all the mechanics behind it. I'm certain there's YouTubers who've done deeper dives into...
and the Joy-Cons are not the first time that we've seen a lot of it. Like, now that we've gone into 2 to 3 generations of wireless controllers, some level of drift does happen with most of them. And I can tell you, like with PlayStation, it's basically rated around the age of the controller and how worn down it is, and then you'll start seeing drift. Joy-Con drift is also something that does exist. I think Wiimote drift was also a thing. Even Xbox has had them.
Well, this was something that was even an issue way back with the N64 as well. It's just the N64.
Yeah, when you had like the early wireless controllers that were coming out for that and for GameCube.
Not even the wireless controllers. It was something that happened because this was something.
Oh, was it in wired controllers too?
Yeah, I've seen it happen. But usually, the key thing is that it was easier to fix with the N64, since usually the time where the drift would happen would be because someone either put the controller away improperly where the joystick was being pushed, or the more common thing that would cause it is that you were pushing the joystick while turning the system on, and that causes it to freak out. But all you have to do is just unplug the controller, plug it back in, or reset it. And so, yeah, the joystick drift, it's been an ongoing thing with Nintendo's consoles and with consoles in general. It's just a case where because Nintendo likes to use proprietary hardware for their machines, it's not as easy to fix.
And the reason that I think Alex brought this one up is because, and I'm going to say this is probably a legal strategy from Nintendo more than anything else, but because they are involved in a lawsuit that's over this, but they're basically arguing that Switch Joy-Con drift isn't a real problem, hasn't caused any inconvenience or anything like that. It's all being made up. Okay? Alex, do you have a rant boiling? Do you want to just get it out of your system right now?
Granted, I don't know if that's exactly what they said. I mean, that's the articles ensuing, but there could be some, game of telephone going on, but Nintendo, it's very much a real thing. About 24 and more. So
from what I can tell, it is in the record of the lawsuit. So at that point, like that Nintendo is making this argument. I haven't been able to get the documents myself, but from what I've been able to tell online, yeah, they are basically saying that they don't think it's a real problem or an inconvenience.
Yeah, but it's definitely happening. It's been happening to me. Granted, I tried a reconfiguration of the controller, so we'll see if that has solved anything. I haven't really taken much time to see if it's done anything yet, but I can tell you it's been happening. It's been making playing Mario Sunshine a living hell.
So do you have a message to send in? Do you have a message to send to Nintendo that yes, it effing exists?
It's real, so fuck you.
See, for a second there, I thought he was gonna go, it effing exists.
Yeah, I mean, again, we should take this with a grain of salt, since that specific phrasing isn't coming from Nintendo themselves. That is coming from the law firm representing the consumers.
Yeah, that's the thing I was about to point out. This is coming from lawyers, not necessarily like lawyers representing Nintendo. So like it is considered on the record for Nintendo, but it is their lawyers saying it, not Nintendo itself.
Yeah, and specifically the lawyers representing the players who are filing this class action lawsuit. The law firm is, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I am going to give it a try. So, Chimickley, Schwartz, Kreiner, and Donaldson Smith. That is the name of the law
think
firm.
you got it right. I think you got it right.
Yeah,
or
that is the name of
CSKND.
Yeah, CSKND. That is the law firm that is basically compiling video evidence as part of this class action lawsuit, and they are the ones who are saying that Nintendo is alleging that Joy-Con drift is not an actual issue. And like you said, it could be a game of telephone. It could be a case where it could even be cherry picking stuff out of context. We don't know. Again, with lawyers, they tend to play things pretty close to the vest.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of cases the reason that they're doing this, if you read further into the article, CSK&D is basically trying to make an argument to pursue the case through the arbitration process, not through full-on trials and things like that. And so at that point, they're basically trying. My guess is they're trying to use this argument in order to say, yeah, we need to go down this arbitration deal. But we also should point out this class action.
Well,
Go ahead.
Actually, let me clarify that, because it's the district judge that's overseeing the case is compelling it to arbitration. Not too much.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Yeah, and it was specifically Nintendo that pushed for arbitration, not the attorneys. It was Nintendo pushing to move it to arbitration in lieu of it being going to an actual trial.
Oh, my bad. For some reason I thought that CSK&D were representing Nintendo here. My bad. I don't know why. But yeah, we should also point out this is a class action lawsuit that has been going on since July 2019. That's how long these trials take, people. They take the years to be able to get done. And the most action that we've had on this, aside from the push to arbitration, is in March of this year. The judge in the case approved Nintendo's move to compel the case, or they approved to compel the move the case to arbitration, but also rejected the bid to dismiss the case. So they rejected Nintendo's claim to dismiss the case, but they are pursuing moving this into arbitration. Yeah, it's a mess.
And this is just one lawsuit out of two of them, because this is a lawsuit
Yeah.
being filed in U.S. courts, whereas there was also a lawsuit filed in French courts accusing Nintendo of planned obsolescence, which, for those of you who aren't in the know, planned obsolescence, it was an idea created by Henry Ford, because of course, is the idea of designing products that are designed to break down over time or become obsolete, thus requiring someone to
Which,
actually
by
replace
the way, has been an argument in the gaming industry for years. A lot of people have thought, not just Nintendo, Xbox, even PC dealers are in on this concept. They literally design these things to break down within like 1 to 2 years or something like that.
Yep. Again, it was the concept was created by Henry Ford, so that way more people would buy more cars. Because again, Henry Ford's kind of a dick.
It's hard to prove. I know a lot of people have gone, like I've seen cases go up against Sony in regards to this. I've seen cases go up against SteelSeries for their keyboards, and it's always been a hard argument to prove, because just because of the concept of one keyboard is not like the other. You could have one keyboard that lasts 5 years, you could have one that lasts 2, and it just depends on the user. It depends on the conditions that it was in, and how it got there, and things like that. And so at that point, it's always been a hard thing to prove. And I hate to say it this way, but I almost kind of think that this is going to be the same case with Nintendo as well.
To a point. Again, the difference here is that in French courts and with the European Union in general, cases like that are a little bit easier to argue because of the consumer protection laws that are in place in the EU.
Mm-hmm.
With this class action lawsuit...
But in the U.S., probably not.
Yeah, in the U.S., probably not. Again, with the class action lawsuit, most that we could hope for would be some sort of settlement, which is what will likely happen with arbitration. But that doesn't necessarily mean Nintendo's going to change the way they manufacture the Joy-Cons. It'll likely just mean that maybe either players who are part of the lawsuit get a certain amount of money, or Nintendo just has it where it's like, okay, for this set period of time, if you send us your Joy-Cons, we'll fix them for free, and that's about it. I can see that one is probably the more likely resolution that Nintendo may suggest if the arbitration doesn't go their way, or if they try to settle this out of court. Exactly.
And in Nintendo's defense here, if you read later in the article, Nintendo's president, I think it was Furukawa who did this. I don't think it was Iwata, or Kimishima. Yeah, I don't think it was him. But Furukawa actually did put out a Joy-Con drift apology, a public apology in regards to it. So you have that at least. So it's not like Nintendo's completely ignoring this. That's why I'm saying it looks like it's more of a legal strategy at this point. But nonetheless, it is an issue. One thing, Alex, you might be able to refer on this because you have actually been dealing with the situation. I did get a question in regards to this lawsuit. Have they shut down repairs? I don't think they have.
think they did. Right now, I think they're reopened, but I know
Yeah.
because of COVID, they had to.
Yeah,
I
COVID they
think
shut
they
down,
had
but
to
I don't think because of the lawsuit
shut
they
down.
ever did.
No, not because of the lawsuit. But
No.
just COVID. They had to shut down for a little while, but I think they've since resumed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. This person thought the COVID stuff was why you weren't able to repair these controllers, is because of COVID they were shut down, not because of the lawsuit or anything like that. Like, I don't think if Nintendo came out with a public apology, I don't think that they would reject repairing at that point. No, I think that that would be a bad PR move for them.
Yeah, and especially with the way Nintendo repairs tend to work, where they always have you go through a lot of testing steps first. They're usually pretty good about repairing stuff for players. Granted, the Joy-Cons, what I've been encountering in my own experiences with the Switch, where I did have to send in some Joy-Cons to be repaired, I found later that they didn't actually repair it. They just sent me a new one that just had to be repaired. And so they have been a bit sketchy about repairing the Joy-Cons, or rather than actually fixing them, they just...
Well, it's basically stuff they've done before. Like, I remember a few friends who dealt with crashed Wii's or crashed Wii U's, where, you know, like, when they looked it up online, it was an easy fix, but it had to be done by Nintendo. And so they sent it into Nintendo. They got a whole new Wii U in the process, which means they didn't even, their hard drives weren't there. And so at that point, they were, like, really pissed that they, you know, from what they could tell, it was a really easy fix. But then Nintendo would be like, well, we found this problem and this problem and this problem, and that's why we sent you out a new Wii U. Enjoy! And that's all they said.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten a little bit better about disclosing when they send you a new one, but it's kind of one of those, yeah, that is a bit suspicious.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts on this one before we move into the next one, because I will have some things to say about that one.
Joy-Con drift is real, Nintendo. Start fixing it.
Quote the Shadow Blazer right there. Joy-Con drift is real. Put that on a shirt. All right. Moving into the next story we have here. You guys will hear this rant very soon because it will be hitting the RSS feed sooner than you think. But I will go ahead and do a little bit of a catch up for those who don't know what we're about to talk about. So, World Wrestling Entertainment. Man, it's a great company. It treats its employees so well. I mean, the healthcare benefits are to die for. Sorry, pardon the pun. Their vision and their dental benefits are great too. Oh, by the way, they don't offer any of that. They don't actually offer anything to their talent. They treat their talent as independent contractors and just treat them like shit. Especially when they see that their talent is earning money off their given contracts, which at some point I'm pretty sure Vince McMahon would have applauded them for doing, because that would have showed great initiative in the business world. But, well, let's just put it this way. WWE realized that so many of their talent had Twitch channels and Cameo channels and YouTube channels, and were able to earn a good amount of side revenue from it, because and this actually started with Xavier Woods starting up the channel Up, Down, Down, when he had the basic feature of highlighting these wrestlers when he was doing Let's Play footage, and he would be interviewing them. And so it became like an ideal concept. It even urged a lot of them to go off and make their own Twitch channels or Mixer channels in the case of Adam Cole and AJ Styles and a few other people. Well, WWE wasn't happy about that, because they were actually using in some cases, they were using their talent names because of the name draw to be able to bring people into their Twitch channels. So, like, AJ Styles was using his name to bring people to his Mixer channel, kind of thing. And up until that point, everybody thought, okay, well, that's fine. Except WWE was like, "Brr!" and basically said, no, you have to shut these things down, because how dare you earn money on the side? How dare you, sir? How dare you? And then the internet imploded, basically told Vince McMahon to shove it, which is what should have happened. But then we had WWE backpedal, because they love doing that. They love doing that. They basically came back and said, oh, you can keep them, you just can't use your names your talent names anymore. which for those who aren't in the industry, let me bring you in on something. That is something that not even WWE can enforce, because a lot of their premier talent came from other wrestling companies and were smart enough to copyright their names before they ever entered World Wrestling Entertainment. And that pisses Vince McMahon off. So in the case of, say, somebody like Rusev, he had to go back to his real name of Miriam. AJ Styles, however, and Adam Cole, who had those names since Impact days, went to New Japan with those names because they had the insight to actually take care of the legal ramifications of those names. WWE can't do anything. AJ Styles can look at them and go, suck my D. All right? That's just the way it is. Sorry, I'm in a little bit of a DX form here, so I'm going to be telling a lot of people to suck it, okay? But it gets worse. Not only did they say, okay, well, you have to retract your talent names. You can't use those anymore. Okay, so they all did it. Then WWE basically said, wait, you have to go through us to be able to do them. And that's where we're at today. In 4 weeks, World Wrestling Entertainment is enforcing a policy that the Twitch accounts, the Cameo accounts, the Mixer account, well, the Mixers don't exist anymore, Instagram, all that stuff, has to be turned over to World Wrestling Entertainment because they represent them. They have to actually sign a contract or an agreement saying that they acknowledge that World Wrestling Entertainment represents them in all of these endeavors. And now the accounts belong to World Wrestling Entertainment. And hey, if you're a good boy or girl this year, maybe you'll get a cut of the profit. Because they never said like how much of the money goes to the actual wrestler. But here's where it gets even better. And this is like, as a martial arts fan, Romney, you're going to love this part. So when a WWE talent signs a contract, especially like former MMA and things like that, there's always what a lot of wrestling channels have called the guaranteed money clause. Basically, what happens is at the beginning of a year in the contract, World Wrestling Entertainment will send you a certain amount of money, and it can actually range between $50,000, $70,000, all the way up to about $120,000. Because what happens if you get injured? What happens if tragedy strikes your family? There's a lot of unforeseen contingencies that nobody can ever encounter. And so at that point, you at least have that to live on while you recover, while you take care of this stuff. All right. And depending on how popular the talent is, which Vince is very, very nitpicky upon, because he tries to do it as little as possible. Bottom line is that he tries to make sure that guaranteed money, big wad, is as small as he can possibly get it. Well, now he's actually worked it out so that when they sign this agreement, their lawyers are also basically getting the talent to acknowledge that because of the side revenue that they earn through Twitch, that they don't even get, like they get a small percentage of it, that will also get taken out of the guaranteed money. So basically, Vince is trying to make a justification of taking that guaranteed money and not having to give so much because you have a Twitch channel. And we've seen how much money that Markiplier makes, and how much money that PewDiePie makes, and how much money that Ninja Guy makes. And we're going to take this out of that money in case you get injured. Well, what if you get injured so bad that you can't actually sit in front of a computer to play Fortnite? Well, guess you're boned. And that's where we're at today. In 4 weeks, WWE talent has to sign this, and I have no problem giving a big fat middle finger to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Now go and suck it, or you're fired. Thoughts?
honestly, it's pretty much just going to be retreading what we discussed with the last time we discussed the WWE and Vince McMahon trying to exert control, where this is likely going to backfire horribly, and it's basically going to, be another nail in the coffin of the WWE when it finally starts to die,
which some might argue is already happening, because COVID has not been kind.
And then the other final point being that, well, he sold the XLF to The Rock, he may as well sell the WWE to The Rock at this point.
I would not disagree with this, because I honestly think that I don't think The Rock should run it, but I think The Rock would find the right people to run it, which at this point would be Cody Rhodes and AEW. Oh, snap! Alex, any thoughts on this one?
Not too much to say other than, man, this guy's a major douche.
Welcome to our world, buddy. Welcome to our world. At some points, we have to give it to Vince. He was a visionary, but at the same time, all of his visionary acts all came back to bite him in the crotch. Not the ass. There is no ass there anymore. I don't care that there was a Kiss My Ass Club. It's all gone. But the bottom line is that, yeah, all of the things that made him a visionary back in the 80s came back to bite him in the 90s and later in the 2000s. And so at that point, yeah, Vince McMahon is just a power-hungry son of a bitch. This is not kid-friendly, by the way.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel, Adam?
No. Then Susan Wojcicki would actually remove this. Because I could go on a tirade for Vince and his family, as well as some of the other visionaries over there at World Wrestling Entertainment who are making such great decisions. Including that wonderful chiropractor Chris Amon, who doesn't understand how to properly treat illnesses.
Yeah, well, the sarcasm meter is going off the charts. We should probably move along.
Fine. So, I mean, the one I want to specifically ask here, I mean, like, the ultimate level in skis here is, like, this guaranteed money that's supposed to help you out if you bust your knee at WrestleMania and you cannot perform or perform the tasks of your contract for the rest of the year, and he's basically saying, oh, well, you'll make that up on Twitch. Does Vince actually, like, does Vince and WWE lawyers actually understand how much gets taken out from Twitch and YouTube?
I don't think they actually understand how
No.
a lot of the new stuff actually works.
Because, I mean, even, like, the only litmus I think that they have for this is Xavier Woods. And Xavier Woods has even gone on the record and said, like, no, I probably earn more in my WWE contract than I do through up, down, down stuff. And look, he loves doing up, down, down. I know that he does. I mean, for crying out loud, they just barely started up a second channel, aptly named Left, Right, to be an opposing faction against up, down, down. And no, it's left, right. That's right. So at that point, like, I could guarantee you he's probably not getting as much revenue as people think he should. Especially with how much gets taken away from YouTube, how much gets taken away in taxes, et cetera, and I don't think Twitch is any better. And that's the sad reality. And unfortunately, Vince doesn't understand this because the litmus that they have is, oh, look at this PewDiePie guy who makes a lot of money, except he's kind of an odd case when it comes to the YouTube algorithm. So at that point, you can't really judge everybody else based on him. Oh, but wait, Vince doesn't care. He's going to make you do that.
Yeah, it's like, it seems that he's like a few years behind. I'm just reminded of that South Park episode where they try to make a viral video to get the fake virtual money, where they think, oh, it should be worth this much money, and they think they're going to get actual money. I'm just like, okay, Vince, I mean, good that you're watching that episode, but maybe you should, understand that a lot has changed since the time that episode was made.
I like what a friend just barely said to me. Vince is just butthurt that they were able to get more famous outside the ring than inside it.
Sounds about right.
Mic drop! Sorry, Alex, what?
I said, sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Sounds legit, yeah.
Yeah, that's the sad reality here is, like, a lot of the talent there who have not been able to get any time in front of in the ring, they've been able to get a lot of time in front of Twitch and be able to endear themselves to that audience and be able to get so much more of a following. I think the perfect example here is Rusev, because Rusev, like, he had a whole movement. Like, people wanted him to get more of a push within the company, so much so that when a guy came out and just randomly said it's Rusev Day, the fans, in a form of rebellion against Vince, basically got behind Rusev Day, and every time he came out, everybody was chanting Rusev Day, Rusev Day, and Vince never liked it. Vince never liked it because he didn't want to push Rusev. And now that Rusev has left WWE under fairly bad circumstances, like he did not renew his contract and he did not leave on good terms, he goes to Twitch with his wife, who was also a WWE talent, and they just start telling stories, and immediately he's doing so much better than he ever was in the last year that he was at WWE. Yeah, Vince is not happy about that, by the way. Like, how dare you get famous without me?
Yeah, he does not seem to be a particularly happy individual. But then again,
No.
Is anybody in show business ever really happy with the way things are?
No, but Vince is a weird case where a lot of people are just saying, unfortunately, he believes the whole concept if he just retires that he's just going to up and die. Like, the next day, he's just going to up and die. I think also Trump believes this, and they're good friends. And so at that point, he believes this philosophy, and that's why he won't let go, even though people have been screaming for years, let go. You're not helping anymore. Let go.
See, now I'm just imagining, like, the Grim Reaper is just literally floating behind him. Anytime now.
Not today, Reaper! You're fired!
To which the Reaper just goes like, hey, I don't even work for you, man.
And now I'm picturing Norm Macdonald playing the Reaper like he does in Family Guy. It's like, dude, eventually you gotta go. Never! I'll continue eating steaks as long as I can!
Yeah. I'm calling it here. We're eventually going to see that sort of gag on Family Guy at some point.
Oh, I hope so. I really do. I really do, because I will watch Family Guy again just to see that.
Well, I mean, especially given, well, the now continuous relationship between Fox and the WWE, I can definitely see the writers of Family Guy trying to make some sort of crack, but
yeah. But Alex, you get to kind of wrap this up. Like, when I'm explaining the guaranteed money stuff, like, what's your take on that? Because it's absolutely irritating, right? Like, he's basically trying to take as much money out of the pockets of his employees as he can.
Yeah. Like I said, this guy's a major douche, and he really needs to be kicked out already.
He kind of does.
Is he just like the sole proprietor, and there's like no way to oust him?
Yep. He bought the company from his dad.
So he's just the sole owner, and there's like not a board of directors.
No, there's a board of directors, but he tries to keep as much power for himself, so that he doesn't ever have to give up the company.
Which means the only way to take him down is the guillotine. And I'm not meaning the wrestling move.
I don't even think the actual guillotine would work on Vince McMahon.
Well,
Dude does lots of exercise. I'm pretty sure the guillotine would break on him.
well, it depends on who'd be doing it. I mean, a guillotine choke itself, it's one of those moves that you have to be very lucky and in a very specific position to pull off. But, I mean, unless you manage to, like, throttle him a bit as you're trying to apply it, so that way, you'd have to basically apply the Krav Maga methodology of throttling him, moving around the floor so that way he can't get any sort of a sprawl in, and then dropping your weight at the last minute, in which case it's no longer a guillotine, you're just trying to break the guy's neck.
See, I was gonna say, like, the only reason that the guillotine would work is if one guy was running it, and that would be, and editor's note, Drac, add in the music and the glass shattering. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and say, Stone Cold! Stone Cold! The Rattlesnake! He's here! He's here to chop off Vince McMahon's head! Oh my God, King! There you go. This is just Drac's way of bringing in as many wrestling references as he can. So.
Yeah, but But I think it just kind of also shows for the listeners that I know a disturbingly amount of information about how to apply martial arts techniques. Probably more than I probably should.
It's okay. Joe Rogan has that too.
Yeah.
That knowledge is kind of like that. Having that level of knowledge, I've just kind of like, especially with martial arts fans, it's just expected. So.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. I know I'm the only one that kind of cares about this, but it just bugs me so bad when companies do stuff like this, because it's just as skeezy as demanding your employees do tons of crunch. It really is. For as much as people want to praise Vince for having such a successful business, he has a bunch of people whose profession is literally to throw themselves onto the floor as hard as they possibly can, and he never acknowledges that that's a big thing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's irritating.
Yeah, it's literally an empire built on the literal backs of men.
Yes. So, moving into the next story that we have here, this one is kind of silly because I think it got blown out of proportions just a tad. But like we said earlier in the podcast, we now have like confirmation of major sites like IGN, Kotaku. I would bet that Polygon has early access to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And we've seen some teardown videos and things like that just to say like what they're capable of, what's actually in there, etc. And unfortunately, when people were doing their teardown videos, there was a rumor that went around that was basically saying that, like with previous Xbox models, the Series X would have an overheating problem. And the reason that they accounted to this was that, yes, while the game was running, specifically, and this is hard to nail down, but supposedly, I guess the indicator is when they try to run backwards compatible stuff, the Series X runs harder than it needs to be able to run it. And some say, no, it's just regular game. Some say it's just using any game based off the hard drive, et cetera, et cetera. But when you play those games and then eventually you give up and you go into the main menu and you're going to take a break, the other thing that people have noticed is that there's a serious venting that kind of happens from the Series X itself. But we've actually had explanations of this coming from specifically Aaron Greenberg, who is the GM of Xbox Games Marketing, since he's had his for quite a while, and he's had long talks with the engineering team, and basically this is all intended. This is how the according to Aaron Greenberg, this is how the console is supposed to work. Yes, it's running hot because it's running a lot of tasks at any given time, and then when it does that venting process, it's doing everything in its power to bring the temperature back down because an ideal PC works in a cooler environment. So basically kind of reaffirming that much like any other predecessor of the Xbox brand, it is built like a PC and ergo kind of interacts like a PC. And so it got blown out of proportions that there was an overheating problem, and it really isn't. And this is literally the Aaron Greenberg quote that is on Twitter, and you guys can look it up. The console will output system heat out of the exhaust, just as any other console will. Our engineering team confirmed the heat leaving the console when it's doing the venting process is not significantly different than Xbox One X, which sounds right to me because my Xbox One X Elite kind of does the same thing too. This matches my experience at home. Quiet, fast, and impressive power for the size, which if people don't remember, the Series X is actually kind of small, significantly small compared to the PS5. I'll never get over that tiara. Or the PS Kaiba. I like that one. That one was good. But with that, just really quick, you guys' thoughts on that, because, the first thing that comes to people's minds is with Xbox overheating, Red Ring of Death. Like, they're immediately concerned that, this is going to be the next console that has Red Ring problems. I've even still seen people for years try to say that the Xbox One X has Red Ring problems, and if it does, it's significantly less. I even had to go and look into the numbers. They haven't had that many repairs to do based on that concept. They've had other repairs to do based on the various models of the Xbox One X. Man, I'm so glad I'm never going to have to say that again, but Series X does not help it. Alex, your take on this? Like, when you hear that, are you immediately concerned that you're going to have another overheating system?
Not maybe a little bit, but at the same time, a lot of time has passed since the Xbox 360 and the Red Rings of Death, so one would assume that Microsoft has certainly taken the time to learn their lessons, all the hard lessons.
I don't
from
even
that.
think they work with the same companies that they did to make the 360 anymore.
Yeah, I imagine their manufacturing has shifted around.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the potential, again, just given everything that's going on with the current year, that there could be some possible hardware issues or manufacturing issues that might come out of the early models. This is why being an early adopter of tech is not always the best idea, because
Especially when you're not tech savvy and you don't know what's going on. Like, if I was having the Xbox Series X and that happened, I would know why it's happening, and therefore I probably wouldn't be as worried. You, on the other hand, you probably wouldn't know, and then at that point you would freak out.
yeah, I would be wondering what's going on here. So
You'd probably be calling me or one of your friends, and I'd be like, "Oh no, it's just venting," and then at that point you're just like, "Really? That sounds like it's dying," kind of thing.
yeah, so I think enough time has passed. I say there's still the potential for some early hardware issues as the first series rolls out, but even then, I think Microsoft will make good on anything and probably take care of like issues that come out. You know, people. I think for the most part, Sony and Microsoft are really good about the people who are spending a few $100 on these consoles are usually pretty good about.
Especially considering this generation where they're both, I believe they're both 500-600, right?
Yeah,
We've got that confirmed. Yeah, so they're both $500 console. That's half $1,000. They have to play it safe right now.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be. So even if there are issues that arise, whether it's from heat or some other technical issue from the manufacturing, I think Microsoft is gonna make good on their customers, and I think they're gonna take care of issues. They'll probably just say, "Okay, send it to us, and we'll repair it or we'll replace it."
And in this case, I also kind of agree with you. I think they've learned from the past. I think even when the Xbox One X, the Xbox One came out, they still they had repair teams on standby just in case something came up that their testing didn't prove. So at that point, I think they prepared way better than they did for the 360 with Red Ring of Death, and I think the same case is here.
Yeah, especially for all the advanced hardware that they're cramming into these machines. I'd say they're going to be trying their hardest to make these really efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Romney, your take on the overheating issue. Do you think we're heading towards another Red Ring of Death, or do you think Microsoft's prepared?
I think Microsoft is pretty prepared. I think they learned their lesson after the Red Ring debacle and how much it, bent them over the table. I mean, with everything that happened, I doubt they probably would be very cognizant of, okay, let's do whatever we can to not be in this situation again, which so far they've been pretty good about.
Yeah.
I mean, overheating is an issue with any console, provided that, people are placing it properly, they aren't covering the vents with anything. But it's one of those cases where I'm pretty sure Microsoft has learned their lesson about not having proper heat sinking, because, again, that bit them in the butt hardcore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one thing I had to go confirm with friends of mine who had the newer models, but I couldn't remember exactly. They actually did have a deal when that Red Ring situation happened, where they basically rolled out their new model of the 360 fairly quick after that, and they actually offered this as an incentive to Xbox users to upgrade their stuff to the new model in exchange for your older model, and part of that was because they wanted to get those models out of the market, kind of thing. They didn't get a whole lot of them out of there, but they wanted it to go away. They really did, and they knew what they had done wrong, and they went to fix it fast. And that's one thing I can give credit to Microsoft. When they have an issue, they fix it, and they fix it fast. except when it comes to their Windows patches, because they still have the problem of every other patch works. So maybe move some people from your engineering team over to your Windows team. Just saying.
Well, I mean, engineering for hardware and engineering for software.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying here is like have them look at it and go, yeah, can you cover for these discrepancies? And then the software people are like, you want us to do more work? Yes, we want you to do more work. Oh, we'll fix it in the next patch. No, fix it now.
Yeah, I had a comment, but then I lost because I have a half brother who used to be a manager of a Microsoft store who had to deal with stuff like that on a regular basis.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's one of those things where that's a whole separate.
Dude, my brother was Microsoft certified and he made fun of them all the time. He made fun of Microsoft all the time. He even like when he would get all the perks that he would get from Microsoft, he'd be like, "Hey, are you guys ever going to fix this, the patch issue or whatever?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're working on it." Like even the employees know that this is a problem.
Yeah.
Same thing as I've been told that this happens, but Apple Store geniuses will also recommend to people like, "Oh, are you going to buy like the nearest odd numbered iPhone? Wait till the next even one. It'll be more worth it." I've heard they do that, but I've never seen it. And it wouldn't surprise me either.
Anything to get the sale.
Yeah, pretty much. So final thoughts on this one. There really isn't a whole lot to get into because it's actually quickly been disproven. We now know what is going on to make that happen, and ergo it's not that big of a problem. It's just something for early adopters to get used to. So I think we've covered our bets here, which is appropriate because our next story also involves Microsoft, and I'm actually going to bring this over to Alex because he's the one that found the story. Xbox bought GameStop?
No, they didn't buy GameStop. They're just more partnering with GameStop.
Yes. So basically what's happening here is that GameStop has shared in
I've got a number for you. This is about the video game industry. It is a pandemic winner.
Sorry about that, guys. You guys probably heard that quote because it was on my speakers. Dang it, video. Dang Fox Business. So yeah, they basically are sharing in on a multi-year partnership with Microsoft to create the purpose of it is to create the ultimate gaming destination. What that basically means is that you're going to start seeing a lot of Microsoft stuff being advertised in local GameStops, specifically policies like the Xbox All Access, which is the 24 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate to players with no upfront cost. You're going to see a lot of that stuff being advertised. I don't think that the stores themselves are going to turn green or anything like that, but they basically are going to be able to get an extra bit of cash coming in from Microsoft to help them kind of recoup some of the losses, especially that the pandemic has created. But I don't think you're going to see like GameStop turn green. That's not going to happen.
Nah, mostly because that would open Microsoft up to antitrust legislation with all things considered. But the other key part of this partnership is that GameStop is also getting access to Microsoft's cloud-based business applications through Dynamic 365, which is basically, another way in which companies can buy and sell your data without your consent. In this case, GameStop getting access to things like customer preferences, purchasing history, real-time information on product availability, subscription pricing, promotions.
See, as much as I hate that, though, you and I can both agree on this. Have you ever seen the GameStop system before this? It's archaic beyond belief.
Yeah.
This is actually a huge improvement. All the data, all the stuff that you're bringing up aside. Like, this is a huge improvement.
Well, that remains to be seen, because although GameStop has access to it, how they implement it remains to be seen.
Exactly. But that could be said of any other store that would be taking this over. I'm trying to be optimistic in the fact that, hey, look, they're finally going to update their stupid levels of archaic system that they've implemented at every GameStop, which has never made sense to me that they've never upgraded.
Well, either that or they'll they'll just come out with something worse that's even more obtuse.
Well, now you made me doubt, and now that's happening.
This is GameStop we're dealing with. Can you?
Yeah.
You can't really trust them with anything.
Now we should say, because it's also being said in this article, the partnership does give something of a competitive advantage to brick and mortar retail, because they will be able to probably advertise the Series X a little bit better than the PS5. I honestly don't think that's going to affect stores that much. They're still going to be giving equal space over to both consoles, and there's still going to be a Switch section, so it's not like it's going to become, oh, well, are you going to buy the Series X? Actually, I was looking to buy the Switch. You're looking to buy the Series X? That's not going to happen.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I can see maybe GameStop, in their zeal with the partnership, maybe trying to push something kind of like that.
I'll bet you in the contract it does encourage their employees to, when they're doing Xbox sales, to push Ultimate Game Pass and all that.
Yeah, specifically the All Access program that they're trying to push. We're probably going to be seeing more pushes like that, and maybe they'll. I mean, because considering like the GameStop that's near my house, where when you walk in, you see the first section you see is the Switch section, then you see 3DS, then you see Sony, and then Microsoft is way on the far wall. I can see them maybe like, okay, move your Microsoft stuff more to the front of the store, so that way it's the first thing customers see, and then have the rest of the stuff further in. I can see them making arrangements like that, kind of employing some of those more psychological tricks to get people.
Exactly, and depending on what the GameStop that you go to has, like I've heard that this is a policy with a lot of the stores, that depending on what console sells the best, they get the front row real estate kind of thing, and then everybody gets pushed to the back. I'm pretty sure in this deal, Microsoft says, nope, you never push us to the back. We always get the front, which in turn they'll probably also like just put PS5 at the front anyway, unless PS5 doesn't sell.
Yeah.
So I think that'll happen too. But I'm actually kind of glad you brought this up, because another listener actually brought this story up too, and was asking, is this Microsoft trying to play Monopoly again? And I would say no, it's not, because it's not like they're buying GameStop. It's more like they're offering to help out GameStop.
Yeah.
It's weird business terminology, but that's basically what they're doing.
To put it in layman's terms, this is more of a partnership deal, a temporary deal from what it sounds like, but it doesn't look like Microsoft is actually buying any stake in GameStop, which some people may assume that's what they're doing, because the article we're going off of, which comes from Fox Business, is that what it was initially reporting is that GameStop's shares went up 30% on the stock market when this announcement was made. But Microsoft hasn't bought any shares of GameStop itself. They just cut this deal, and with the way the stock market works, that now, since it's a speculation-based market, that made people think, oh, this will be a good source of revenue for GameStop. I'm going to buy some shares because the value is about to go up. Thus, as more people buy shares, the value goes up.
And that's kind of more the point of this, is like, oh, it looks like this bigger company is helping out this smaller company that's about to die. And therefore, there becomes a little bit more faith in the market for them.
Yeah, plus in this case, people thinking, oh, they're buying like GameStop. That, I mean, in terms of the type of monopoly that people keep using the word incorrectly.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to throw around if you don't know what it means. But in terms of a monopoly, although, yes, Microsoft does have the infrastructure to control the production and distribution of games, they're not the only game studio in town. Now, if it was a case where Microsoft owned all of the companies that develop titles for Xbox and owned the distribution market, a case could be made. But third-party developers are a thing. And so, yeah, Microsoft getting any sort of monopoly in the gaming industry, not likely. And a large part of it is the third-party thing, unless they enact a policy similar to what Nintendo enacted back in the NES days, where they basically try the whole, oh, you make it for us or you don't make it at all.
Yeah.
But that's not really, no third-party company is going to agree to that anymore, because,
well, and it would also kind of go against Microsoft's interest to buy them outright, because unfortunately they would the way that I look at it is they'd also be buying a lot of GameStop's problems right now, and it would be too much of a fixer-upper for Microsoft to fully invest in it. But this at least kind of is a great saving face kind of move for Microsoft, especially with new consoles coming out, is that, oh, well, we still have faith that GameStop can get the job done in selling our consoles.
Yeah, it's more akin to an advertising deal more than anything. It's not like that Microsoft is buying
Yep.
a stake in GameStop. This is more of an advertising agreement of that they're saying, hey, help promote these things and we'll give you some money to help. It's kind of the equivalent when a soft drink company decides to sponsor a NASCAR driver, where it's like, we're going to give you this amount of money, and in exchange, you put our branding on your car. That's pretty much what Microsoft is doing here, is that they're basically paying GameStop money to effectively more aggressively advertise their products.
Yeah. The other thing that that is being brought up, especially with this story, is because of this, do we actually think we'll see a rare moment where Phil Spencer and Reggie Fils-Aimé might actually share a handshake and therefore end the world? No. No. Reggie's too busy on the golf course to be bothered with that, and same thing with Phil.
Yeah, and again,
I think the closest thing you will ever get in regards to that is when they did that at the Game Awards. When what was it? Phil, Reggie, and Sean Layden, I think. They went to the Game Awards and made a big announcement there together.
Even then, I mean, it's fun to think of having these key figures as being the representatives of their companies.
They're not.
But they're not.
They're not. I know that Reggie and Phil have kind of become memes in their own right, but yeah, they're not. They don't actually have the power to explode the interwebs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and especially Reggie and himself, his role at GameStop, he's just on the board of directors.
Yeah.
He's not the CEO or anything.
Yeah, he's too busy catching up on his saves of Earthbound right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to take the poke. I had to.
Well, I mean, at least it's a poke with a game that we actually got. It's probably more a case where he's probably, getting caught up on his Mother 3 saves that he's...
Man, he loves that fan translation, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Reggie.
Yeah, I just remember at this it was like this lecture he gave at a university where then literally that was one of the first questions he was asked, where it was like, I'm sure this question gives you nightmares, but do you ever think we'll ever see Mother 3? And he's just like, probably not, but that's no longer my problem.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, you get the final say on this one. Do you think that this is going to change really anything? What I basically mean is this going to get you back into GameStop?
Well, no, but I can say it's certainly given GameStop a stay of execution, but
Yeah.
But really, GameStop has a lot of fundamental problems that need to be addressed if it's ever going to truly be saved.
Which I'm guessing that the board is going to be taking care of, but it's not Microsoft's job to do it. And so at that point, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are mistaking from this situation is like Microsoft's not stepping in to oversee anything. They're basically just saying we're helping a friend out, basically. And then at that point, letting GameStop handle things internally.
I recommend the YouTube channel Fantavision. He was a former GameStop employee, so he has a lot of insights as to why he feels GameStop is kind of in such shambles it is now.
Yeah, I mean, either that or Microsoft is copying Internet Explorer and still thinks GameStop is actually viable because they haven't quite caught up with the rest of us yet.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on into the last story of the night, which is also equally kind of depressing, but I honestly believe, so we're going to tackle this tonight, but I think we're also going to have a big night where we discuss this situation as a whole. We're only going to be talking about a piece of it tonight, and that is a lot of industries got hit hard with COVID. And I want to say that one of the biggest was probably the movie theater industry, because movie theaters got shut down completely. And even though theaters have, like, I think local theaters around us have started to open. I think like Megaplex has, and I think some Cinemark ones have, but
in a very limited capacities.
But because of the fact that movie new releases aren't really happening, like all the big movies have either been moved to 2021 or were moved to late 2020, and now we're going to get moved to 2021. And
they moved to streaming.
Yeah, or they basically just became streaming exclusive, and that's also hurt the movie industry, or the movie theater industry specifically. And the two companies that we're going to be talking about in regards to this are probably the most hard hit, and that would be Regal Cinema, and to some extent AMC, because I can't remember what exactly happened with AMC just right after COVID happened, but it left them in a bad spot, and now it's actually possible that Regal is basically going to be doing another shutdown of their theaters because of the fact that there aren't big movies coming out, and COVID has hurt them so badly that they really just can't pay employees right now. So it's just a damn situation. AMC is not faring any better. I know Cinemark has decided to open regardless, and they've had some success, but not as much as they were hoping for this year. This has been a bad year for movie theaters.
Yep.
So
a large part of it, like we mentioned, is because there aren't enough theaters to actually compel people to actually. They've got nothing that puts the butts in seats, basically.
Yeah, basically. And the other thing I'm also going to point out specifically from this story, there's an argument that's being made within the article that we're reading off of The Verge, basically saying that the only way to save the movie theater industry is to make a COVID vaccine. And I'm going to disagree with the author of this article. I don't think a vaccine would even fix it, because even then, let's just say the vaccine does a quick fix for it. You still don't have basically what Romney said. You don't have the stuff that's going to put the butts in the seats, kind of thing. And so at that point, it's great and all that we're going to have a vaccine and we can all be in a crowded movie theater again together. But if we don't have the right movies, it's not going to work. And that's going to hurt them in the long run.
And you can only get by for so long with re-showings of classical movies or limited engagement events. That can only get you so far, especially considering that a lot of the studios have been making more money with premium video on demand as compared to theatrical releases. I mean, Trolls World Tour is probably the strongest example, where it made more money in its first weekend than it would have made if it had released in theaters. And a lot of studios like Disney and others are cluing in thinking, hey, it's cheaper for us to just put it on our streaming platforms. People will pay $30 for the ticket to see it on their streaming service, and they don't have to leave the house.
Yeah.
We get more money in our pocket, meaning that we don't have to worry about this middleman. And so even after the vaccine comes into play, people are going to be used to getting the new movies through their streaming platforms. And honestly, I can see studios thinking, hey, we're not going to waste our money sending these to theaters and doing all this and printing up all these advertising when we make more money just by putting it on the platforms that we already control and own. Between Disney Plus, Peacock, and all these other streaming services, that's probably going to be the direction the industry as a whole is moving towards.
And that's why I'm saying that there's going to be a bigger discussion to be done later on, is because I actually kind of want to do just like an in-depth discussion of saying, like, you know, what happens now with the movie theater kind of way of life kind of thing. Like do we see movie theaters come back the way that we used to know them? Or like I said, there's a lot to take in with that. But I also know that a few listeners wanted to bring up that, well, maybe movie theaters don't have anything to worry about because they recently had like a big campaign to bring Battle Angel Alita or Alita Battle Angel back to theaters. And there's a couple of other campaigns to bring other popular movies back into theaters. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree with you there, because the bottom line is it would be great. Like, for some people, it would be great and all to see Alita Battle Angel or Avengers Endgame or the Lord of the Rings trilogy on the silver screen again. But there's a couple of things to overcome with that. One, streaming platforms have them. And so you can watch them from the comfort of your own home. Oh, but wait, you like that dinner experience that a lot of theaters offer? There are services like Grubhub and DoorDash that now provide that stuff. I don't even know if you guys know this, but Grubhub and DoorDash, they actually will do deliveries from Megaplex theaters. Specifically for like popcorn.
Megaplex literally announced that way back when, saying, hey, we partner with Grubhub and DoorDash to literally deliver popcorn to your home.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that thing that you probably have a lot of at home.
I would not use that for popcorn, but I will admit I would use it for some of the other theater food. I'm a Maybe I'm weird, but I do like theater food.
Yeah, but that's not being offered.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
No, it's just popcorn and candy. I know. I've actually done a Grubhub delivery for it, and I talked to the person. I'm like, that's lame.
That is lame. I could go to the grocery store and buy it
Yeah.
cheaper than that.
Yeah,
It's
seriously, you're
insane.
buying Reese's Pieces from Megaplex when you could just go to Harmon, like you could go to Walmart and get some.
Yeah, I mean, it's limited just to the stuff that you can buy everywhere else. I mean, if you could order the Buffalo Juniors, then we'd be.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Buffalo Juniors from Megaplex, or like if they worked out a specific deal to be able to have like their Mayan open or things like that, that would be great. But no, it's just their concession stands that's open, which is dumb.
Yeah.
It's lame.
Opportunity.
You heard me, Megaplex. It's lame.
It is lame.
But
Very.
the other thing that I also kind of want to point out, so you have the streaming availability there, but you also have the paranoia problem here, which I've started to see slowly building as this year has progressed, is that there's just a building paranoia. Nobody trusts anybody. And so and here's the problem. In order to enjoy the movie theater experience, you have to be comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But right now, current laws would require you to wear a mask for 3.5 hours. And actually social distance and everything like that. And so and even with those things in place, you still don't feel safe. You still have a little bit of a paranoia problem. And so that's not going to bring people to theaters.
Yep, especially because, especially using Utah as an example, considering that for the past few days, we've been averaging over 1,000 cases per day. There's that, in addition to the paranoia with like the masks and everything, it's a case of there's that worry that you're going to go to the theater, and then there's going to be that one asshole who's not going to comply with guidelines, who's going to try to do the bare minimum.
I also think that the paranoia also gets lent to that one guy shows up, he doesn't know he has COVID, but he's taking every precaution, but it doesn't matter, kind of thing.
Yep.
So it's a mixture of a lot of things, but the paranoia is still there, and therefore the movie theater experience is harmed by that. Because like all of us, like a lot of people don't realize, like we were all okay with sitting in a giant tuna can, to watch Avengers Endgame. But now they look at it from the COVID perspective of, ooh, this doesn't work anymore. And so that becomes a big problem for movie theaters. So that's why I'm saying there's a bigger discussion to be had here. Like, I think, like, from here on, COVID vaccine or no COVID vaccine, like, if they developed a vaccine, that's fine. And that would change things a little bit. But I think that this year alone has changed the media industry significantly and also changed the viewpoint on the industry significantly. And so at that point, now you have other hills to climb for the movie theater industry. And so that's going to be something that has to be addressed here. I think some companies are going to be okay with it. I know that Cinemark has adopted a lot of policies now that have been very well embraced. But will Regal Cinemas or AMC adopt these? I don't know. It's definitely something that has to be considered.
Yeah, especially considering that especially when you look at companies like Cinemark, where they're trying to now push for private watch parties where you can bring up to 20 people and rent out a whole theater for only $100, which compared to other theaters, that's actually really, really cheap.
It's really cheap. But the problem that I have with it is that I know how many seats are actually in that theater, and I know that, and the sad thing for me is, like, I know how much money they're losing out of it.
Yeah, honestly, my speculation of what will happen even after the COVID vaccine becomes a reality to the point where it is safe, tested,
it's reality. It's been distributed. It's everywhere it needs to be. There are still going to be some things that they have to consider.
Yeah, and here's my speculation as to where the industry might go. What I can see is a lot of the bigger blockbusters that Disney and Warner Brothers and a lot of these other companies put out. I can see those starting to disappear from theaters because they make more money off of the streaming services, and so they think, okay, if we put these on our streaming services, we'll get more of a return on our investment. But I can see this opening things up for the mid-range movies that had basically been pushed out of theaters. This is something that Martin Scorsese mentioned when he compared the Marvel movies to theme parks, where if the blockbusters are pulled from these theaters because they make more money on streaming, I can see smaller studios thinking, oh, well, these films have been pulled out of theaters. Maybe our mid-range films will have more of a chance. And I don't see movie theaters bouncing back to the point where they're doing the big, massive IMAX sort of stuff on a regular basis. I see them more trying to do more of the limited engagements, like the Fathom event sort of approach, where it's like, okay, well, we have this showing of this mid-range movie for this set period of time at an inflated ticket price. I can see that being the only way theaters can really bounce back, is if they start doing the limited engagement route with the increased ticket prices, treating it more like an event rather than having films that are constantly showing every week. Again, that's just me speculating, but I can see that being probably the only way they'll really be able to bounce back, is if they start going the Fathom event limited engagement sort of route.
Yeah.
Opening this up to more mid-range movies and adjusting in that regard. But again,
well, this is why I'm also saying that the industry itself is going to be changing after this, because I agree with your concept, like the big blockbusters will just be moved to the streaming platforms, and one of the main reasons I agree with you on this is that the marketing campaigns for those don't have to be as huge as the movie campaigns, like the movie theater campaigns. And so at that point, they are going to look cheaper to the studios, and ergo, they're going to want to go that route. And I do agree with you that this actually leaves an opportunity for the mid filmmakers or even up-and-coming filmmakers to kind of make their stand and retake the theater in that weird case. I agree with you on that, but the only problem that I have with the streaming is that, okay, Disney Plus, they're fine because, you know, they're owned by Disney and they can do whatever they want with it. But then you have cases like with Warner where they had their DC app, and from what I understand, they're basically looking to shut it down. It's not making as much money as they were hoping. And so they're moving a lot of those properties into, I think it's HBO Max now.
HBO Max.
And so, and from what I understand, they have to pay fees to be able to get that stuff onto HBO Max. And so it actually becomes, in a weird way, like a detriment to them to go that route, because they don't have their own streaming service to be able to rely on. They have to go rely on HBO. And that's where it becomes a little bit more fickle in that regard.
Yeah, and the other problem with the idea of the limited engagement approach is that you're also having to cater to very specific niche audiences.
Yep.
You're going to kind of lose that mass market appeal. Plus, it's also just going to change the way. Another factor that people are forgetting is that the way movies are made are also going to change in large part due to what's happened with COVID.
That's why I'm saying this is a bigger discussion. The industries themselves are going to have to change, and I want to cover like as much of it as we possibly can, because you're right. How films are being made, how they're how they're advertised, everything has to change at this point. I don't even think Hollywood has truly realized the amount of change that is coming their way, but man, it's going to hit them like a truck when it does.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there are some easy ways to overcome and even be prepared for some of these changes, but I don't see a lot of the old guard being eager to adopt those changes.
And I see a lot of that old guard being replaced because they're just going to look basically out of touch. And so at that point, there's going to need to be new vision that's going to need to be behind these companies.
I mean, we're already seeing it with the release of Tenet, with Christopher Nolan being like, "No, you have to see this film in a theater. I'm not going to have it be released on streaming." And then him wondering, "Oh, why is no one seeing my movie?" It's like, it's because you released a movie in theaters during a global pandemic, you idiot.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
There's a lot of stuff to be considered here, but I'm going to go ahead and leave Alex with the final thought here. Is there anything that we haven't covered?
Oh, I think this is pretty much it. If we get to this next week, we could talk about Patty Jenkins' remarks about, the theater industry and what it could possibly mean for the rest of the movie industry. But yeah, I mean, this is also kind of like what I said about GameStop, This goes more than just the pandemic. There's a lot of other systemic issues within the movie theaters that would need to be addressed if they really hoped to bring back audiences that probably swore off the theaters ages ago.
Yeah.
Or those who were already looking to and now have the perfect excuse.
And also kind of lending to Romney's argument, I kind of want to bring this up to you as well, Alex. I don't know after Endgame, I don't know if the superhero movies were going to bring people to the theaters as much as both Warner and Disney were banking on. I think a lot of people walked away from Endgame with tremendous superhero fatigue, and I actually think it might be better for them to launch a few of those movies via their streaming platforms instead, because I just don't think like Wonder Woman, you're probably going to get a whole lot of people. But for smaller licenses, like, unfortunately, I'm going to bring this up, Romney, because I think it would suffer. Shang-Chi, because nobody would be invested. Everybody's so burnt out with superhero films that I don't want to see these films suffer.
Yeah, but then the other factor to consider with the superhero films is you've got Marvel launching all of these side shows on Disney+. Plus, unfortunately, with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, a lot of their plans have been derailed.
Yeah, they have to reconsider everything at this point because they no longer. I honestly believe they're probably not looking into a Black Panther 2. Like I've heard a lot of stuff internally saying like they almost want to leave Black Panther alone in honor of Chadwick. So I don't know.
That would probably be for the best. Maybe, and granted.
And I think even like a lot of people were pushing for the sister to don the mantle, and I think the actress has said no.
Which I don't blame her, even though in the comics,
nope.
Shuri has donned the mantle of
sure.
Black Panther, but that was after a lot of very specific events, which the MCU has not had any chance to establish. It's one of those cases where, Disney's going to have to adjust to it. Plus, with all the shows that they're launching on Disney Plus that are meant to tie into this larger universe, that's probably going to affect how they're going to be telling stories.
And the viewership is going to affect it too. Like, I'm excited for things like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision, but am I going to be am I going to be eagerly waiting at my couch to watch them? No. I'll wait for the season to come out and then I'll binge it like I always do. And now the industry has to cater for people like me who are going to binge versus people who will watch weekly. So.
Yeah, and it's possible to cater to both where you have the releases, because when it's a streaming service, people pay per month regardless.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here because I think we've pretty much hit the nail on the head. And like I said, whether it's next week or a couple of weeks down the road, we need to have a bigger discussion about this on what we think the industry is as a whole is going to have to do to accommodate for this, because it's not just movie theaters. Filmmakers are going to have to adapt to this. Hollywood itself is going to have to adapt to this. And it's going to...
We've already been seeing like stage productions having to adapt. At the news station where I work, we've been doing a lot of profiles on a lot of different stage shows, and even they have had to adapt with COVID and basically come up with ways to keep their shows going while keeping the performers safe.
Exactly.
And in some regards, they find really creative ways to make it work. There was an opera company here in Utah that was doing a performance of Rigoletto, and they found a way to make it work. They just had to kind of treat it as less of a performance of the full opera, and we were like, okay, this is more of a review of Rigoletto where we're just focusing on the major numbers people recognize from Rigoletto rather than doing a full-on production of it. It's a case where entertainment as a whole is gonna have to really rethink, and and many people may think with certain industries that are safe. No, even things like books, video games, animation. The COVID is gonna
books, video games, animation, YouTube, Twitch, all of it is gonna have to reintegrate.
Yeah, entertainment as we know it is gonna.
Which, for the record, I'm excited to have that discussion because a lot of this stuff, like, we have been begging for, and so that's why in a lot of cases I want to give it the time, because a lot of this stuff is exciting to me. A lot of this stuff also is very serious to me.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I mean, in a lot of ways, I can imagine. And again, entertainment as a whole, 2020. This is going to be a year nobody is going to forget anytime soon. This is basically going to be the kind of thing that's going to have a ripple effect on entertainment for the next number of decades. I mean, it's kind of the same thing that happened with World War II, where it had a lasting effect on our media landscape. Same case with the Great Depression. Same case with World War I.
Yep.
This is a history moment that we're going to be seeing the ripple effects when we're all, so old and having to have IVs strapped in our veins.
And now I get the picture of like both me and Romney being at an old folks home and still continuing to make, maybe they shouldn't have made that decision. I don't know. And that would be amazing to me in some weird way. It really would. Because I do actually like having these discussions. But we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. And one of the ways that we're also going to be wrapping up from here on in is we still get listener questions from time to time that are silly, stupid, and kind of out there. And so at that point, I think it's actually a great way to be able to kind of wrap things up in a sillier way because of all the serious stuff we've had to talk about with 2020. And so this specific listener question is going to be, if you could eliminate one social media platform entirely, which one would it be and why? I don't have to think about it. Twitter. I would eliminate Twitter. I look, as much as I do not like how Facebook has done data collection and things like that, Twitter, I'm sorry, guys, I have to say it. Twitter is a dumpster fire, and it has been since its inception. And so at that point, I would get rid of Twitter. Alex, Romney, which one would you get rid of?
I'd get rid of Facebook.
Oh, really? You just cut it off at the source?
Yeah.
I agree with Alex. I would, and it's really hard not to go on a political rant here. So without going on my soapbox, there's more of a justification to get rid of Facebook out of all of the other social media platforms. And in a sense, I would even lump Instagram in that umbrella since, well, Instagram is Facebook. So
well, I mean, if you eliminate Facebook, then you pretty much, you cut the whole thing off. Because I honestly don't believe Twitter would have been a thing without Facebook. And I don't believe that any other social media platforms would have ever been considered if Facebook, or even MySpace to some extent, hadn't kicked off that interest.
yeah, it's very much, as the saying goes, you cut off the head and the body will die.
Yeah. And I can get that concept. But man, like, there's some small part of me that thinks that, okay, maybe Facebook can be redeemed. They just got to get Mark out and get all that. And I get, like, I can already see Romney looking at me weird, and he's right. But part of me is just like, but I don't like Twitter. I just don't like Twitter. And so I would go that direction personally.
So maybe Jesse Eisenberg wasn't such a bad choice for Lex Luthor. I mean, he played Mark Zuckerberg.
Honestly, I will still say this.
I still think the South Park interpretation of Mark Zuckerberg is better.
Yeah, but I will still say this. As bad as Batman v Superman was, Jesse Eisenberg was probably the most entertaining thing of that film because he looked like he was the only one having any fun
Yes.
making that film.
Yes, and we all agree on that one. He was probably the only one having any freaking fun.
I like the setup they were going with Justice League with Lex in that one. I was like, yeah, I want to see more of this guy now.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking in the Justice League movie where they kind of set up like he was going to be a servant of Darkseid or whatever?
Well, I mean,
What
are we
he's
talking
married
the-
to Slade.
yeah, because in the theatrical version, they weren't talking about Darkseid. They were basically teasing a Legion of Doom with.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were teasing the Legion of Doom, yeah. So,
I mean,
I would only want that if you could bring what's his bucket back from the grave so he can do Meanwhile at the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they could probably get James Arnold Taylor to do the voice. That's within his range.
I would want him to do it as Troll Obi-Wan, but that's just me.
Well, it's just given that he.
Meanwhile, darling, back at the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, it's just I know that that would be a voice he could do because he does a lot of the announcement
Yeah.
voices on Fox, and so I'm just like, yeah, if they wanted anybody to do that sort of thing, James Arnold Taylor could pull it off. But
Yeah.
I
I agree with you.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so
social media is
okay,
probably both the best and worst thing we've created as a species. Is the point of the question, I'm assuming.
pretty much. But I think it also was just trying to point out like what social media platform do we think is the scuzziest and why? And that's why in a lot of cases I answered the way I did, because Twitter to me is just like, I have positive aspects of Facebook. Man, part of that is just because I use it only to contact certain family. Like I've learned the lessons that I think you were espousing to in your holding back, Romney. I've learned those lessons, but Twitter is just all of it. Twitter, like I hate going on Twitter every day, and I do because I want to answer questions and all that. And every time I go on there, I just find something that just makes me want to clench my fist or cringe my face so hard. And so but I can see you guys' argument. Cut off the head, and the body goes down with it. So, all right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. If you guys agreed with our recent question answers, or if you guys agreed or disagreed with us in the stories that we talked about, Alex the Shadow Blazer, how did they talk to you about it?
I am on YouTube, and Shadow Blizzard 3000 is my channel, and I do my anime content there, a little game content on the side. And I am on Twitter. You can follow me there. I blast out new videos when I make them at Alex J Short. That is my handle.
All right. And Stephen Romney, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me under my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle on YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud. I upload to all three when I actually have something to upload, which is something that has kind of been called into question as of late due to recent events. And if you want to see a more personal side of me, a side that is a bit more expressive, for lack of a better term, you can follow me on Instagram under Romney Does Art, which I am working on something that will make that username no longer a lie, but that won't be available until quite a ways from now. And if you want to interact with me directly, send me things you want my specific opinion on, as well as to see what recommendations I drop every single week. You can do so at Twitter, at Romney Reviews. And as for this week's recommendation, since we mentioned Shang-Chi, I'm going to be recommending the new Shang-Chi series that Marvel just launched. It was supposed to launch earlier last month, but again, COVID kind of delayed the diamond shipments. So they've been releasing this new series, and it would take too long to summarize what this new series is focusing on, but considering that it has the talent of Jean Luen Yang, who was the artist and writer behind Boxers and Saints, Dai Kruan, who worked on Spider-Verse and Black Cat, and Philip Tan, who worked on Uncanny X-Men, if you wanted to get an understanding of who Shang-Chi as a character, if you're wanting to read up on who he is before the movie comes out, this is definitely a very good starting point, and that's this week's recommendation, is the new Shang-Chi series by Marvel Comics.
All right. And if people want to get a hold of me, specifically for questions, you can contact me via Twitter, even though I will hate going to it, because I have no problem saying that, which is at Drac2326. You can leave your questions there. That's usually where I check for them. If you want to see random geek memes that I find, random observations about life that I have, or even pictures about my kids, because I'm a dad, and I've always been asked this, like, what anime character would I ever be? Obviously, I would be Brigadier General Maze Hughes, because I love my daughters, and oh, look at them, they're just so adorable. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Drac2326 as well. For the podcast, though, the first thing that I want to mention here is we are live streaming via YouTube, Twitch, DLive, as well as Facebook. You guys can join us every Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, as long as we don't have anything major going on or holidays are happening, because we are coming up on that. So you guys can join us here live for the recording and be able to join in on the live chat, which we have had tonight, and be able to join in on the conversation. And we bring you guys in as much as we possibly can. We also ask that you guys support the RSS feed itself, which is geekynro.libsyn.com. That is the best way to be able to support it, because that's where everything is hosted, including things like Geek News Movie Night. For those who are wondering when that's coming back, we're actually getting really close to needing to do our suggestions for that. So that's going to be on the RSS feed. We will also be having, and I'm happy to announce these things because we are going to have some amazing roundtable discussions. I've even considered doing some of the bigger discussions that you guys have brought up to me as roundtable discussions, so you guys can enjoy that. We also are going to be bringing things like the G Gundam podcast, because I've been asked if the G Gundam podcast is going to be coming to the RSS feed. Yes, it is. Because here's the thing, like, it's great and all to do these things with my wife, but wouldn't it be awesome to be able to do one with Romney, or to be able to do one with Alex the Shadow Blazer? And that's why I want to keep it as open as I possibly can. So that's why the G Gundam podcast is coming there, and any other stuff we want to review. And I'm not even restricting it to anime. We could probably even do movies or TV. Like US TV. I would have no problem with that either. But that's where all of that is hosted, so please support the RSS feed. That's where all of it goes. You can also support the podcast via social media on Twitter and Facebook under the exact same tagline, Geeky NRO, where you will get information on whether or not we're going to be able to stream that given week, the stories that we might be covering, the stories that aren't going to get covered, the discussions that might be brought up, or even any cool announcements that we might have. Like, a lot of people know about our end of year stuff that we try to do. And given that it's 2020, I'm not sure if we're gonna aim for that, but we're gonna try. We're absolutely gonna try for it. I just don't know how we're gonna make it work just yet. But that's where you're gonna get the announcements there. And of course, if you guys want to leave feedback, leave listener questions like we're gonna be responding to, or leave stories for us to be able to cover, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. We thank you guys so much for your continued love and support of the podcast. We really do appreciate it. And we will be back, I believe, next week for more Geek News reviews and opinions. So for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we will see you guys next time. Go ahead and cut out the audio here for a second. And then I got a quick announcement for people on the stream. Oh, geez, my computer runs so slow. There we go. There we go. Okay. So, really quick announcement for the people who are on the stream. Thank you for showing up. I'm not going to be doing a post stream tonight because we've got to get up fairly early tomorrow, not just to do some tasks around the house, but also we got some good news this week, and we kind of have to prepare the family for that. So, with that being said, I'm not going to be doing a post stream. I promise I will try and get that done next week, but yeah. So I will see you guys tomorrow for our mystery game, because I'm still not telling you. You have to come to the stream. All right, everybody say bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.